What you need to know is that many of these occurrences only take place once in a lifetime, and if you don't go back and examine how they function throughout the course of time, then you're in trouble. There is a pattern, and I could describe the pattern, but there is a pattern that occurs repeatedly, and we are currently in a specific location inside the pattern. And then to comprehend it, not simply due to the fact that it has occurred in the past, but furthermore to comprehend the mechanism behind how it occurs, then one is able to have an understanding of how to deal with it. There was a debt crisis that occurred on account of an excessive quantity of debt during the boom years, much like there was a debt crisis that occurred between 1929 and 1932. And then in 1932, when you have that, we reach a point where we have no interest rates. And at the time that they struck, the central bank creates money and purchases financial assets in order to achieve zero interest rates in 32, just as it did in 2008. The regular course of events that takes place during these cycles is that the central banks are able to stimulate the economy by lowering interest rates. Nevertheless, when interest rates reach zero, the strategy is no longer viable. The year 1932 was the most recent time that interest rates reached zero, and the actions that they took in 1932 were identical to those that they took in 2008. And that is the fact that the central banks create a large amount of money and purchase bonds issued by the government. That is what we are doing at the moment. In addition, for the sake of clarity, the reason that they are doing that is to ensure that somebody has purchased a government bond already. This is essentially the government saying to you, dear individual, that you should lend me the money. I am going to construct things, roads, or whatever else you may require, but I will repay you in a year, 2 years, 10 years, or whatever else you may require. Considering that it also has interest, I would presume that it is worthwhile. The reason why the government is coming into the market and purchasing those is to return liquidity to the individuals who have provided them with the money that they have borrowed them. Yes, because if you think about it in this way, the central government, as well as businesses and individuals, do not have the ability to generate money. Therefore, the central government has the authority to decide whether or not it is able to impose taxes on individuals, that it is able to collect money from individuals, and that it is able to spend money on whatever it chooses to spend money on. However, they do not possess the authority to print money and generate new money and credit in the same way that the central bank does. The Federal Reserve is the nation's central bank. In a similar vein, the Federal Reserve does not have the authority to spend money and decide how it is spent for the benefit of Congress. Every single person, every single business, and every single government entity has a specific amount of money that is derived from their income, a specific amount of money that they spend, and then a specific amount of money that they stash away. You have to do it on your own. In addition, it operates in the same manner for everyone, which means that if a person's income drops below their expenditures, they are in a precarious situation unless they have a substantial savings account, in which case they will go to the savings account. Therefore, there are a great number of entities that are experiencing difficulties in this manner all over the planet. Therefore, the two branches of the government, the United States government, are required to provide financial assistance, and as a result, they are printing money. We refer to it as print. In fact, there is not even much paper. It is the process of creating money digitally and then getting that money in the form of loans. Okay, so basically they are making money through the use of digital technology, which they are then distributing to the government, and the government is then using that money to decide how to distribute it. Indeed, the Federal Reserve will purchase bonds issued by the government, therefore it is a transaction in which they will buy it, and in addition to that, they will also buy private bonds. It's possible that they will choose a company, or even a number of companies, and then say, I will buy your bonds, which is the equivalent of saying, I will lend to you over the course of history. This has occurred. The process that we are currently going through is the same as the one that occurred throughout the time period of 1930 to 1945. What are some things that the typical individual can learn from that? There are no ties between them. They do not have that way of thinking. It is possible that they are not even aware of what their 401k is, or that they do not even have a 401k at all. But how do they get around this obstacle? Is it simply a matter of accepting the situation and doing everything in your power to weather the storm, or is there something that they can genuinely learn from the historical perspective and move on with their lives in order to relieve them of this burden? Indeed, it is the same for each and every person as well as for each and every business. To say that you comprehend this is to say that you comprehend. It turns out that there are three things. To begin, you should examine your income, your expenses, and your savings. After that, you should perform a stress test in order to ensure that you are financially stable. In the event that you were to lose your income, or if your income were to drop below a specific threshold and you were to play that out, it is possible that this would require you to apply for unemployment insurance or some other form of aid. How long is it possible to maintain a lifestyle that is tolerable? Additionally, do you have a savings account that is sufficient for that? So what you do is you compute. If I lived a simpler lifestyle and I had this amount of wages, how many months, or how many years would I be able to live in a manner that is acceptable to me? When it comes to countries or time eras, which ones have. Going through this kind of catastrophe has been handled in such a way that we have emerged on the other side with as little pain and suffering as is humanly feasible. As an illustration, consider the several approaches that Roosevelt took to accomplishing the task. We had a significant wealth disparity, and then they sat down and found out how to keep it orderly and how to modify the circumstances, whether it be taxes or... So again, 1929 to 32, interest rates hit zero, they printed money, and we had a tremendous wealth difference. What is the best way to reorganize it such that the system functions effectively? Additionally, there is a risk at the same time due to the fact that the entire planet is going through that. There is a possibility of a dispute occurring. So Hitler came to power in Germany in 1933, and he came to power because there was a lot of internal fighting as to try to bring produced order, because everybody, the left and the right, you know, the communists and the fascists, and they're all fighting about wealth. Hitler came to power in 1933 because of this, due to the fact that while you are experiencing a slump, everyone is battling over riches. And then there were democracies at that time. There were 4 democracies that made the decision to stop being democracies because they had become so disorderly that they desired to have a powerful leader take charge and rule the country. After that, of course, we had a large number of leaders who were of that kind, and then they went on to start a war. That was the way that World War II transpired. Taking all of information into consideration, that is a representation of the political scene. But if we return to the typical man in terms of his financial situation, I would say that the most essential thing is to have a plan, and it is even better if you have a plan with your family as well. When we begin to consider the significance of preserving future generations, what role does education play in maintaining that protection? What is the extent to which education plays a role in this? It is the most essential thing to have an education. I was brought up in a family that had a very humble economic background. I am. Despite the fact that my father was a jazz musician and my mother was a stay-at-home mum, I was fortunate to have parents who loved and cared for me. I attended a public school, I received an excellent education, and I came out into a world where everyone has equal opportunities. And I am of the opinion that these are fundamental necessities, that you need to know how to have an education of facts, just as you need to know how to read, the ability to write, and the ability to do mathematics. But in order to be a decent citizen and to conduct yourself in a civil manner, you must also be able to know how to deal properly with other people. Only then will you be able to go into occupations. And that education can be delivered in any way that is effective. I believe that the most important thing is, 3 major things that I believe should be the focus of effort. Ensure that your work and your passion are one and the same, and that it is financially viable. It is likely that you will become more skilled at your profession if you enjoy what you do and if it is successful. Your desire is to have those things. There is also the matter of the economics involved. Therefore, it might be anything whatever, from learning trades to anything else it might be. The term education does not necessarily refer to a college degree. More emphasis is placed on college. As we enter the next phase of the cycle, which is expected to last between 3 and 5 years, what is one thing that individuals may do that you are aware of from a historical point of view will most effectively protect them from the potential